Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan touted his country's investment advantages to business people in the United Arab Emirates, after a flurry of economic agreements between the two countries seeking to end a period of animosity. He was continuously accusing the United Arab Emirates of becoming terrorism supporter, but the economic crisis in Turkey has changed all of his rhetoric against this country.
15 Temmuz'un failini kendi ülkelerinde tutuyorlar. Ortakları da Birleşik Arap Emirlikleri. 15 Temmuz'u biz yapmadık, onların talimatıyla oldu.
Bu bölgede kim kaos yaratıyor derseniz hiç tereddütsüz Abu Dhabi'yi söyleriz. Evet.
Erdogan, visiting for the first time since 2013, received a grand reception with UAE de facto ruler Abu Dhabi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan meeting him on arrival and the world's tallest tower, the Burj Khalifa, projecting Turkey's flag. The move to rein in regional rivalry rooted in differences on the role of political Islam comes after Ankara launched a charm offensive last year at a time of economic turmoil in Turkey and as the UAE turns towards soft power politics. The new page in UAE-Turkey relations points to a wider reset in regional strategies following a decade of strained ties and proxy wars that played out between the two countries. Turkey's support for Islamists during Arab Spring protests roiled Abu Dhabi's leadership, which views the Muslim Brotherhood and its offshoots as an existential threat to its style of autocratic hereditary rule. So deep was their animosity that Ankara claimed the UAE backed a network behind the failed coup targeting Erdogan in 2016. In other signs of a political shift, Erdogan has plans to visit Saudi Arabia sometime in February following a deep strain in ties and will welcome Israel's president next month. The pomp and Turkish flag-waving cavalry that greeted Erdogan a day earlier for his meeting with Abu Dhabi Crown Prince and de facto leader, Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, continued on in Dubai, which positions itself as the UAE's globally alluring tourism and finance hub. Erdogan was greeted by Dubai ruler and UAE Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum at the Emirates' multi-billion-dollar expo site to celebrate Turkish culture and history at the World's Fair. Visitors at Expo were given Turkey's red and white crescent and star flag to wave as Erdogan toured Turkey's pavilion following a Turkish musical performance under the fair's main dome. Standing before a select audience, Erdogan praised the UAE for being the first Arab country to host the World's Fair. It's a stark pivot from only a year or so ago, when it was anyone's guess whether Turkey would even have a presence at Dubai's Expo. As relations soured, prominent officials and government supporters from both sides traded jabs and insults over social media and in state-aligned press outlets. Now, these same social media accounts are tweeting under hashtags hailing the renewed ties, sharing videos of Emiratis speaking Turkish and championing a performance in Turkish by the Emirates' most famous singer Hussein Al-Jazmi at the piano. The world's tallest tower, Dubai's Burj Khalifa, lit up in the colors of the Turkish flag to mark Erdogan's visit while commuters on Dubai's main highway drove under a sign praising the bilateral ties. Senior Emirati diplomat and advisor, Anwar Gargash, noted on Twitter that the warm reception Erdogan has received is a result of the fruits of the hard work undertaken by the UAE to promote an agenda of stability and prosperity. The reset in ties was undertaken by the UAE following a Saudi-led rollback last year of an unprecedented and largely unsuccessful embargo of Qatar over its support for Islamists in the region and its ties with Iran. Qatar was supported by Turkey, which beefed up its troop presence in the country. Like Iran, Turkey rushed to support the tiny but wealthy gas-rich Gulf Arab state with essential imports in the first days of the economic and political boycott. The rebuilding of ties with Turkey signals a wider UAE strategy to use economic cooperation, and its oil wealth, as a main tool to recalibrate its foreign policy posture, particularly in the face of continued tensions with Iran and a new administration in Washington seeking to re-enter nuclear talks. For Erdogan, it comes as Turkey faces an economic crisis and a depreciating currency. Help could come in the form of more Gulf Arab tourists. Dubai's low-cost carrier Fly Dubai announcing Tuesday it would expand the number of flights to Istanbul from 7 to 12 per week. Speaking to investors and business people in Abu Dhabi, Erdogan said Turkey and the UAE had a common will to increase trade and investments, following the signing of 13 agreements. Erdogan said the UAE was Turkey's top trade partner in the Gulf. Even during the period when our bilateral relations experienced a pause, our commercial relations retained its volume and partnerships of our private sectors maintained their vitality, he said. The UAE had agreed in January to a currency swap deal of nearly $5 billion to boost Turkey's depleted foreign exchange reserves. During the Abu Dhabi Crown Prince's breakthrough visit to Turkey last fall, Emirati officials said the UAE would set aside $10 billion for investment in Turkey. In Turkey, the 67-year-old Erdogan faces an economic crisis and a depreciating lira currency, something economists have blamed on his interest rate cuts. Lower interest rates had spurred economic growth across Turkey. Erdogan also has grown more authoritarian in his nearly two-decade hold on power in Turkey, a country of some 84 million people. During Sheikh Mohammed's breakthrough visit to Turkey last fall, Emirati officials said the UAE would set aside $10 billion for investment in Turkey. Turkey's relations with both the UAE and Israel, which developed in the same period, also means reiteration that Erdogan gave up on the Middle East policy he pursued from 2011 to 2020, since the Arab Spring, or the revolts, began. It can be said that the first break in this policy was the 2016 military coup attempt. Erdogan and ruling AKP officials have repeatedly said that the coup was US-based and supported by Israel and the UAE. It is understood that this discourse and the sympathy of the Muslim Brotherhood in the ranks of the AKP will no longer take hold of Turkey's Middle East policy. Turkey's reminding its military presence in Syria, Libya, the Eastern Mediterranean, Azerbaijan during the 2016 to 2021 period and the diplomacy it carried out played a role in this. An important factor was the effort to overcome the economic problems, especially since 2018, by emphasizing international relations. In the meantime, we will have to take into account the developments that remind the West of Turkey's geographical and strategic importance, such as the USA's evasive withdrawal from Afghanistan and the Russia-Ukraine crisis. In addition to attracting investments in risky and controversial projects such as Canal Istanbul, Turkey's efforts to sell its economic assets to Gulf investors came to the fore during this period. The statement of Qatari Foreign Minister Abdulrahman Al Thani in December 2021 at the press conference with Foreign Minister Mevlut Çavuşoğlu that they closely followed the opportunities that Turkey's economic difficulties will bring forth was a clear expression of this situation. In the business circles, there are rumors that there are attempts by the government to sell not only the public companies and organizations under the control of the Turkey Wealth Fund but also some private companies and facilities to Arab investors in the Gulf before the 2023 elections. Despite President Erdogan's great desire, the Russia-Ukraine tension seems to be resolved between the USA and Russia without his mediation. But when we look at this side, the relations that developed in the same period with the UAE and Israel can be considered a new turning point in Turkish foreign policy. Egypt and Saudi Arabia may be next.